What up, everybody? At the beginning of every episode of BMF, there's a disclaimer that says the story you're about to see is loosely based on true. Some of the names, characters, businesses, and events have been fictionalized for dramatic purposes, but a lot of this may have actually happened. So, with that said, obviously, some of the characters in the show actually use the person that character is based off of's real name, like the entire Flannery family, Meech, Terry, Charles, Lucille, Nicole, Meech and Terry's children, and even their childhood friend, Roland West, all use that person's real name. Then there's other characters who they have fictionalized that character's name, but we pretty much still know who that character's based off of. Like we know that B. Mickey's based off the former 50 boy D. Meeks, and that Pat from season 1 was based off the former 50 boys boss E.D. Boyd. Lamar's based off the real life man Layden Simon, and Marquisha's based off Terry's former girlfriend Tonisha Welsh. So the people that I just named are some of the most known players from the show, but most of the characters from the show, in one way or another, are based off somebody, or some characters could possibly be based off a combination of people. Getting me to Detective Von Bryant, who's been on the scene since BMF Season 1, starting off as a dirty cop who was on the 50 Boys and Meech's payroll. But after B. Mickey killed J-Mo, Bryant turned against Meech and has had a vendetta against him ever since. And then after the death of Bryant's son Kevin, which he blames Meech, Terry, and all of BMF and all the drug dealers around the world for, Bryant made it his life mission to take down Meech and BMF, even moving to Atlanta to make it happen. Getting me to the question, who is Detective Bryant based off of in real life? Because not only was he around from the very beginning, we know he's there when Terry gets busted in St. Louis in 2005 with the DEA. In episode 1 of season 4, Bryant made his first appearance in Atlanta at an AA meeting when the guy called him Mark. I think him using the name Mark was an Easter egg that this was a turning point for this character, as he'll begin to be based off the real life person Bryant Burns, who was part of the task force that ultimately took down BMF. The big clue being in the name, being Von Bryant and Bryant Burns. Both of them also have bald heads, but the fact that Bryant Burns is from the Atlanta area is why I don't think this character started being based off him until season 4, when Detective Von Bryant makes his way to the Atlanta area. Bryant Burns ended up partnering with DEA agent Jack Harvey, and they formed a joint local and federal task force against BMF, just like how we saw at the beginning of season 2 in the flash forward scene. Detective Bryant teaming up with Agent Chambers from the DEA when they arrest Terry in St. Louis in 2005. There's also the fact it was said in the BMF documentary Blowing Money Fast that Jack Harvey and Bryant Burns were always doing surveillance on Meech, going undercover into clubs watching him, sitting outside taking pictures at his birthday party. And now Detective Bryant's in Atlanta going undercover using the name Mark. Not to mention, Bryant's been doing surveillance on Meech for so long that Meech has now caught on. In the last episode, we saw him start doing his own surveillance on Bryant. So I think these are all clues that Detective Bryant from the BMF series is loosely based off the real life person, Bryant Burns. Bryant being in both their names, the bald head, the joint local and DEA task force, Detective Bryant being there, finally busting Terry in 2005, and the surveillance and undercover work that he's currently doing. I don't know the extent of the real life task force that took down BMF, but because the fact the BMF organization was so large, being based out of multiple cities, and with over 400 members, there was likely police involvement in multiple cities, other than just Atlanta, with Bryant Burns and the DEA with Jack Harvey. And in the BMF series, we now see Bryant making his connections in multiple cities. He has all his old connections back in Detroit, like Detective Waters, who called Bryant in episode 2, letting him know about Nicole Flannery getting caught with a stolen car, as well as Detective Timmons, aka GQ. So because Terry is currently based out of the Detroit area, Bryant's communication with the Detroit PD will be a key for him moving forward. But we also know that around the year 2000 that Terry will leave Detroit behind and move to the Los Angeles area to run BMF. And we know that Bryant already has a connection in LA, his former partner, Detective Veronica Jen, who also left Detroit behind at the end of season 3, with Bryant going to Atlanta to hunt for Meech, and Veronica Jen heading to California to investigate into some Asian gangs. So we already know that Agent Chambers, who was first shown in season 2 when they had K9 in custody, will return to be part of the joint task force with Detective Bryant. But we'll also likely see the return of Veronica Jen down the line, who will be Bryant's contact in LA once BMF starts making noise in Cali. On the current BMF timeline, Bryant just joined forces with the Red Dogs and is working on a crime board with newspaper articles like the Techwood shootout and the Jack the Rapper event that turned into a brawl, both that Meech was a part of, as well as mapping out the BMF territory and their lieutenants. The crime board had Sterling Black saying he was a lieutenant. It had Hoop saying he was lieutenant. It also had B. Mickey with the question, is he still connected? So Bryant has a pretty good understanding of the BMF operation in Detroit, but now he's in Atlanta trying to figure out who the other players are. The crime board was definitely something that the feds were doing in real life also, tracking the BMF territory, their associates, keeping in mind they knew of over 400 BMF members, and a lot of them were included in the RICO case against Meech and Terry also. Bryant is tracking every piece of information he can find, big or small, and building his case. But now that Bryant's in Atlanta, the heat's turned all the way up, and that forced Meech to have his most recent shipment sent to St. Louis. So right now they feel safe about everything in St. Louis because Bryant doesn't have any connections there yet. And St. Louis will become more and more important of a location because this is where Bryant ultimately arrests Terry in the 2005 flash forward scene. This was also where Terry was arrested in real life with over $4 million that the feds called a gambling party in St. Louis. And St. Louis is also where J-Bo is based out of, who will become a very important member of BMF later on down the line. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.